One of our audience
members.
Well,
and it turns out we've got some good news. I am joined by a Dearborn teacher. You heard what Mr. Mikowski said, what Sheriff Napoleon said. First of all, give me your name.
Inaya Soufan Shehab.
You heard their arguments here. Yes. You're a teacher here. Yes. Would you want a gun in your classroom?
Absolutely not. I'm a resource teacher, and I don't believe in carrying a gun. What I believe actually in allocating these funds for more social work, for more psychologists, to take more preventative measures. And sometimes I even want to go further. Sometimes, like, I am involved in the MTSS process, and sometimes we can see the signs of some troubled students, like we see it, and sometimes parents refuse services, social work. So I think something should be done about that. I think, there's some, if we see some signs, if we have the signs, early signs, and social work, psychology, psychologists, psychiatry, sometimes it's not covered by insurance. So these funds should be allocated to the parents, to preventative measures, to education, to the students, and so forth, not for guns. I'm not going to carry a gun unless I'm forced, but I don't think I'm going to carry a gun.
A lot of times when you think about teachers in classrooms, too, you may end up facing one of your former students, right? It would be difficult.
I will take a bullet for my students. They ask me that question. Will you take a bullet for us? I'm a resource teacher. I don't have my own classroom. But they ask me when I go in a classroom and I co-teach, will you take a bullet for us? I said in a heartbeat, and I started crying. This topic is on our students' mind, like the safety, the guns, the shooters, all these. But again, I believe in education first, education for the parents, social work, all these before you put a gun in a teacher's hand.
She's talking about the emotional and social well-being of students, correct, and dealing with adults. Anybody want to weigh in on this? She didn't really have a question, but she spoke from her heart.
And I do want, actually, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do want, like, for some students, like we do have some parents who refuse social work. I think something must be done with these parents. If we have to treat these children confidential some ways, and the parents are refusing the services, I think something needs to be done.
So you're saying if you see warning signs in a student, and then you approach a parent and say, your child, in my opinion, needs help, and maybe the family needs help, there should be something done. Dr. Maleko?
Yeah, I agree. Our social workers and our psychologists do wonderful things, and they provide support. They really are. They're fantastic. I know we have some of them here. And I would put more resources in those areas. In fact, we have in Dearborn schools. And just to connect something that was mentioned earlier about getting, one of the individuals talked about getting students to talk. One of the things that we've implemented, and we're moving on throughout the district, is called restorative practices or restorative circles. And that's where you get the individuals involved sitting in circles and have an understanding. So therefore, it's not a zero tolerance policy, as Chief had added. Now, we do have to deal with situations, and when there are situations that occur, there is the student code of conduct. Students are expected to adhere to that, and we will enforce that. But we also have to treat them as individuals. And the social workers have really helped in that area. And as they build relationships with students, they feel comfortable going to them, and or our teachers. I was just at a teacher, last year, Teacher of the Year award ceremony. And one of the things that you remember about teachers is the relationships you built with them. And so that's what we want staff. We don't need staff armed. What we need them armed with the skill set in order to do that, to build relationships, to have restorative circles, to bring students together so that they can solve the conflict.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maleko.
Before we take another question from Amira, from our audience, I want to ask one question. Sheriff Napoleon or anybody can weigh in on this. Detroit Public Schools have had metal detectors in the schools for how long? And are they a deterrent for shootings inside the school? Because I know I heard this audience say, oh, no, that would be a horrible thing.
We believe that it serves a purpose, but that in and of itself alone is not the entire strategy. What we attempted to do was to put a layer of security around our children. Not the metal detector is the last line, but you also have layered security, people outside of the school. There was a whole comprehensive thought process putting into trying to protect schools in the city of Detroit. And I know that the metal detectors have been in the schools